Hello, friends, and welcome to Hanover Square, 1775. It's so good to see people here right on time and early. We'll wait a few minutes for more people to join us. As you can see, tonight I am downstairs in our hearth or lower kitchen, which is in the basement of our home. Because it's a bit cooler down here, it's quite warm today. It's a little cooler down here, so I thought we would meet in this room tonight since it's all stone and underground and a bit cooler for us. Oh, great. Miss Kane, Mr. Keenster, LB Girl 88, great to see you all here tonight. And let's see who else joins in to hear all about life in New York today, June 6th, 1775. And besides what's happening in New York today, I'm also going to be talking a little bit tonight about guidebooks for young ladies and young gentlemen with all sorts of information about how to be successful in life. Because in my time, we do have guidebooks. I think you might have them in your time, but in my time, we have books geared toward the specific subjects that are important for both young ladies and young men to master to be successful. Mr. White is here from Pennsylvania. It's good to see you as well. Miss Silver in Los Angeles. Wonderful. It's great to see everyone. It has been quite warm here. It's a very cool spring, but suddenly it is very warm. So I should have brought my fan. So as I mentioned, we're down here in the basement or the cellar where it is a little cooler tonight. Today, first of all, before I even get to today, um, oh, Keenster is Mr. is Keenan Davis. Hello, Keenan. It's so great to see you. I didn't realize that was you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for being a loyal supporter for a very long time. Thank you so much. So tonight, first, I want to apologize for not being able to make our usual Thursday night scheduled interview together. And that is because last night, Mr. Q and I attended a lecture about the state of the British Army here in America now in 1775. I suppose it was a very important meeting, but for me, it was quite boring as military things are really not my interest. Although Mr. Q stayed for the full meeting, I left early and came home. It just, I may have a good mind for numbers and I may have a good mind for business and I may even have a good mind for strategy, but when it comes to military things and soldiers and weapons and who is where and who is being commissioned and what's going on, it really is not something that I find very interesting. So Mr. Q stayed and I came home. We could have met anyway last night. So I am very sorry to have to have moved our regular meeting to tonight instead. Oh, here we are. Q Doggy is here. He just came through. Our doggy just came through to say hello to you. Who else is here? Um, oh, Stephanie Kane, Mr. Keenan's fiance. Wonderful. Congratulations to you two. I didn't know that you were engaged. What is that dog doing? Can you hear all the noise that he's making? Listen to all of this. As if we hadn't had enough excitement today. Mr. Q is in the back trying to call him out of the way. The doggy is right here going between my legs with a toy in his mouth. Oh my goodness. He doesn't seem to be listening to Mr. Q, which is nothing new. He never listens to Mr. Q. It's Mr. Q extremely upset. And he'll start calling for me to go deal with the dog. But the dog is Mr. Q's. Our gentlemen have the dogs. We ladies are too busy for dogs. Gentlemen have the dogs. So, oh, it sounds like they've left. So it's nice and quiet for us. So I could have met last night, and I apologize for that. And I hope it wasn't too inconvenient for you to meet me tonight instead. It turns out to have been somewhat fortuitous that we delayed for a day because we had an unbelievable experience here just a couple of blocks from our home this afternoon that was stunning. What happened was just stunning. I'm still shocked at what was happening. Anyway, it was a typical afternoon with ships in the dock and carts heading down Broad Street down to the docks to load up ships with various goods being shipped out to, other places for which we're engaged in trade. Now, as I've mentioned over the last few weeks, one of the biggest subjects and conflicts happening here right now between everyone is whether or not merchants and artisans, farmers ought to be allowed to outfit ships that are on their way to Boston to supply the army at Boston that, of course, fired upon the people outside of Boston and have started a war with Massachusetts. So there's been quite a lot of discussion about this, there's been a lot of conflict about this, and we came to the conclusion or the agreement that everyone could outfit these ships as long as there were no munitions sent, nothing that could be used for weaponry. There was a big conflict and argument over sending nails, as the nails are melted for musket balls. There's a big conflict over nails, various other types of supplies, and we now have a list that we have agreed to of things that we will send and things that we will not send. And I am just completely refraining from sending anything at all. So in this way, I don't have to worry about, running into any types of disagreements or questions about what I'm doing. So I'm not sending anything. Well, I was in the shop, Mr. Q was out doing whatever Mr. Q does during the day, as sometimes I lose track of him around the town. I was in the shop. The usual, as I said, carts were heading down to the docks, some loading ships, some unloading ships. Now it is quite slow since we are in the midst of this non-importation, non-exportation agreement. It's not as busy as we're accustomed, but there is still some stuff happening here, some things happening, when all of a sudden there was a loud commotion not far from me, down on Broad Street, just really around the corner from me and a couple of blocks away. And someone came into the shop and said, Mrs. Q, you have to come to Broad Street and see what is happening there. And I closed up the shop and went over to Broad Street. There was Mr. Q. Of course, Mr. Q is always where the action is. And what I saw at first, because I started at the northern end of Broad Street, was a caravan of carts backed all the way up to Wall Street, which is close to where I am, backed all the way up to Wall Street from the end of the town, the dock down at the bottom. Trying to, what street is it in your time? In your time, that would be near the Francis Tavern today, was where the dock was. So right there at the dock, which would have been sticking out there. So ships were in dock, the carts were being loaded down, and about a block north of what you call Francis Tavern, we call the Queen's Head Tavern, at about Broad and Stone Street, is where all of the commotion was happening. And all of these carts were backed all the way up. So we hurried down Broad Street to see what was happening. And there was a young man, I think he's about 20 years old, Mr. Marinus Willett. Oh, my dog Rex just joined. Hello, Rex. Happy to have you here tonight to see what the commotion was. And we got down there and there was a young man, Marinus Willett. We know Mr. Willett. He is an active member of the group here we call Sons of Liberty or Whigs or Rebels. Mr. Q knows young Mr. Willett. And Mr. Willett was in front of the first cart, waving his arms around and yelling, as it seems that the carts underneath blankets and inside of crates were sending nails and munitions down to the ship that was being loaded. Mr. Willett and his friends noticed this from the tavern where they were sitting. They went out, they went to inspect the carts, and when they found this, he stood in front of the first cart and demanded everything stop. Well, this caused commotion you cannot imagine, with people in the town now coming out to see what was happening. And of course, the British officers riding down along the side of the carts to get to the front to see what the commotion was. And Mr. Willett made quite a scene this afternoon when he stood, stopped the carts, and demanded that those items be removed from the carts. Well, by then, other members of the Sons of Liberty and other men in the town had arrived, like Mr. Q, and wanted to know what was happening. And Mr. Willett began talking to the regular soldiers. Now, the regular soldiers are I'm not sure what you refer to them in your time. They're not officers. These are the regular soldiers who have either joined of their own accord or they have been given a choice to get out of jail in England and come here and serve, or they're very poor men and they have no other option. Being in the army is better for them than the life they would have in England. So these are just the regular soldiers. They're not titled gentlemen or officers. And we know most of them as they have been stationed in New York for a very long time. So we do know all of these gentlemen, or pretty much all of them. And Mr. Willett started speaking to them and he addressed them. And he said, if you have it in you to go to Boston and shoot upon your fellow British subjects, of course, we are all still subjects of the crown. Remember, it's 1775, and we in America are still all subjects of the crown. Mr. Willett said, if you have the stomach to go to Boston and shoot upon your fellow British subjects, well, go ahead, and we will gladly meet you there on the field of battle. But if you would like to stay here and fight with us, we'll offer you the full protection of the Sons of Liberty, or the association, as he might call it. And believe it or not, some of those regulars got off the carts, threw their jackets in a heap, and stood with Mr. Willett as they decided they would rather stay here and fight to be Americans than to go back to England. It was shocking, stunning to see. Oh, Mr. Linden tells me in England they are usually called other ranks. I suppose they see that as a polite term for commoners, right? Commoners, or dregs, as they might call them. A more polite term, other ranks. So those are the gentlemen we're talking about. And a number of them chose to stand with us here in America. It was quite a stunning, stunning adventure. And through the magic of your modern technology, I have a picture of it for you. Of course, here in New York in 1775, we won't get a drawing of it for quite a long time, but I do have a drawing to share with you. And there it is. And there is Mr. Willett stopping the cart on Broad Street near Stone Street. So for those of you who know, that way is looking north on Broad Street, and Stone Street is right about over here, if you know where Stone Street is. And today, what we call Queen's Head, or you call Francis Tavern, is way over here. It's just about over here. They're just about getting to it. So that is a picture of today's exploit of Marinus Willett, and we will see how all of this turns out in the coming days. So as usual, quite a bit of excitement here in the city of New York. I mentioned the last week that the gentlemen brought all the cannon up to the King's Bridge, and that the Continental Congress is still meeting, and we've heard that they are about to form a continental army and to name a commander. And the commander is a gentleman from Virginia named George Washington. And as I mentioned, I think before, that all I know about Mr. Washington is that he came here to enroll his stepson at King's College some time ago and dined with some of the wealthier members of the town at that time. And that's all I really know about him. I will tell you, though, that Mr. Q and I have been invited next weekend to Philadelphia to attend his commissioning. And, I really don't think we will go. It's a 2-day trip in both directions, and there's a lot to be done here, and I don't think we'll attend, although we are very grateful for the invitation to do so. But I don't think Philadelphia is on our schedule at this time, but it's very nice, and we are flattered to have been invited by our members here of the Congress. Hopefully that will all go smoothly, and I suppose after that they will all head up to Boston to help in what is becoming the siege of Boston, or an attempt to keep the British in Boston, surrounded on land so that they cannot make any adventures inland, keeping them in Boston and out in the harbor. So we'll see how that proceeds over time. Now, my original topic to discuss with you, hold on, I need a drink of water. And yes, I think someone asked me about the water once. The water here in the city is not drinkable, but Mr. Q and I do pay to have water brought to us from elsewhere. So we do have water because I'm spoiled and I like to drink plain water, which is seen as quite an, I know it's an extravagance, but I have few extravagances. As you can see, I'm not as extravagant as many of the other ladies. I'm not as extravagant as my sister, Mrs. Van R, not by any means. Not by any means at all. So my original plan tonight was to talk to you about the roles of our young men and women and how we learn what those roles in life are. And I think I just got a message. Let me move this over here. Mr. Facemeyer, hello, Mrs. Q. Happy belated birthday from Manassas, Virginia. Thank you so much. Last Sunday was my birthday, and we're still celebrating here and there. I got some nice shrubs for the garden from Mr. Q. Helped me pick some new shrubs for the garden. One of my hobbies is flower gardening, so that was very nice. And for my desk, I got a little package from him of dried flowers to keep here on my desk when I'm working my accounts and doing other business. So very nice little gift from Mr. Q. He knows I like these small, pretty things. So very nice things. By the way, my sister, Mrs. Van Art, would never settle for something like this as a birthday gift. Trust me, Mrs. Van Art would have expected, a bolt of Chinese silk. Oh, new buckles for her shoes, perhaps some earrings or other type of jewelry, hair decoration. She would be quite, I think she would find this quite laughable that Mr. Q got me this, but Mr. Q and I understand each other very well after all these years, and he knows I appreciate these little gifts. So thank you to Mr. Q for that. So the first guide I'd like to talk about tonight is for our gentlemen, and it's called the American Instructor, or Young Man's Best Companion. And by the way, I think someone told me that this is one of the books that Mr. Washington used for his own education, that Mr. Washington did not attend college like most of the men of his class, but was self-educated in it. This is one of the guides he used. Many young men use this guide. Now, I've talked a little bit about roles and how important it is for men and women and children and everyone to know their roles at home and in society so that things can work smoothly and people can be successful and hopefully profitable in their lives as well, but definitely successful and safe and be able to accomplish all the tasks one needs to do in order to live every day. Now, here in the city, it's a little bit easier for us as we do have other things at our disposal to help us. For instance, in the next section, I'm going to talk about cooking because I'm going to show a book for ladies. Cooking. We do have places like Sam Francis Queen's Head Tavern or Ranelagh Gardens where we can get food to bring home. So we don't always have to cook. They prepare meals to be brought home if you need them. You can also, of course, eat in those places. We have plenty of places where one can go to have a meal if you don't want to eat at home. But if you are in the country where my sister is, all of your meals are at home, of course. So you have to have everything in place to make sure that you have everything for those meals, someone to cook those meals. And for the gentlemen, well, the gentlemen need to be able to do all of the things they do to support those family efforts. So in here, in the American Instructor for Young Men, we have all sorts of information that is important for young men to know, like, oh, here's a picture of some young men studying. So here they are all together studying and learning together with some books. They're in a library somewhere and some maps on the wall so that they can study together and learn. As generally, it is the gentlemen who are educated, as they are the ones who go out. And if they're an artisan or a farmer or just a wealthy gentleman or whatever they do for income, well, they do need to do things like read and write and know some math, be able to do numbers, present themselves, things like that. And this book has sections on how to do all of that. And here is a section on arithmetic, as I mentioned. So whatever you do as a man, you need to know some numbers, right? I mean, my father taught me clearly so that I could keep books and run the shop. But generally, it's the young men who learn arithmetic and numbers. Measurements, in case you're going to be building something, you have to know, what the parts of measurements are. And for us cooking, we know some mathematics as well, so that we know a cup, a quarter of a cup, a half of a cup, how many tablespoons is in a quarter of a cup, four, how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon, three, all sorts of things like that, cups in a gallon, half gallon, and all of that. So the ladies know some numbers too, and the men know all sorts of measuring numbers for surveying, for measuring, for building, all sorts of arithmetic for things like that. Or if you're a ship captain, there's other math and arithmetic you need to know. Mr. Q is a fur trader. I don't know, but he is very good at numbers and math and very good at building and planning. Mr. Q is what I think you in the future might call a polymath, someone who knows quite a bit about a lot of subjects. And as a result of that, and his very high intellect, can see patterns developing in things, make predictions and good judgments and good planning because he knows a lot of different things and can see how those different subjects intersect. So even though some subjects might have not been relevant to what Mr. Q has done for a living, he has pursued knowledge for knowledge's sake and very well-rounded gentleman in that respect. So we have a section on arithmetic, everything you need to know for a young man, a large section on that. Oh, how to make and how to read a compass, something that would have been important to Mr. Q, right, in his travels, having to know which direction he's going in and how to read a compass. And I know how to read a compass as well, as my father taught us when we were girls in the woods, how to find our way using a compass. So I also know, but he's all how to make one, what materials to use, and how to find the right directions using a compass. So we have a section here for young men on how to do that, because navigation, of course, is important, knowing where you're going. And English, English skills, proper language skills. And I should have shown you more pages from this section, as there are all kinds of things in here. How to write a letter of introduction for yourself, how to write a thank you letter, how to write a business proposal, all sorts of important types of documents that you might need to learn to write yourself to conduct whatever types of transactions you need to conduct. Now, if you're very wealthy, you might just hire a lawyer to do that. But I also have samples of many of these letters that I got from my father, so that I would learn how to write correspondence as well. So correspondence, usually ladies, is just letter writing to other ladies, just day-to-day types of letters, or more intimate letters if it's, someone to whom you're engaged or if you're married, but mostly day-to-day ideas and your feelings and letters. But these are more formal types of letter writing, more for business or introductory purposes. So everything you need to know in The Young Man's Guide, or The American Instructor, or A Young Man's Best Companion, a book that many, many families have for their young gentlemen to learn from. And as I said, I think Mr. Washington learned partly from this book himself. Very popular here. Now, for our ladies, we have The Complete Housewife, or Accomplished Gentlewoman's Companion. And I'm sorry, excuse me for laughing, but this is not a book that I have mastered very well, you might expect. But many ladies have. My sister, of course, probably knows every page of this book, even though she doesn't do the cooking and tasks in here herself. Some of them, but not most of them. But this is everything a lady might need to know to get along. And you can see there are recipes for cookery, pastry, confection, pickles, all sorts of things. There are even medicinal recipes in here for all sorts of cures you might need, and other types of wound treating and other types of medical information that the woman of the house would need to know. Because if someone is sick, you are going to take care of them. It's the mother in the home, or the oldest sister, or some woman in the home who's going to be the caretaker in that respect. So this book has quite a large section on medicines and how to make them and how to apply them. And I know that many of many of you in your time go to a doctor, but that would be quite an extravagance for most people in this time, going to a doctor. So the lady of the house is usually the first person who is depended upon to heal all sorts of things from something, quite common like a headache. There are many recipes in here for cough syrups, things like that. If someone in your family has the gout, if you have burns, all sorts of things, all in this book for women to know. And also a suggestion of recipes by month, as you can see. So let me get my glasses and let's look at June. Need to put on my glasses so that I can see what is in the recipe book for June. I think I have my copy here. So for June, we see roasted pike and smelts, Westphalia ham and young fowls, marrow puddings, haunch of venison roasted, and oh my gosh, ragu of lamb stones and sweetbreads. Do you know what lamb stones and sweetbreads are? Well, not my favorite. Maybe you can guess what that is. I don't think I'll say. Fricassee of young rabbits, which Mr. Q does not like at all. Mr. Q loves the rabbits and he does not like eating the rabbits. Humble pies, dish of mullets, roasted fowls, and dish of custards for the first course. The second course, dish of young pheasants, dish of fried soles and eels, potato pie, sole of sturgeon, dish of tarts and cheesecakes, and dish of fruit of sorts, and syllabub to drink. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, I made syllabub and had it one night here for you to see. And maybe I'll make some syllabub again and explain to you how it's made and what it is, but it's a very refreshing drink. So personally, I don't like very much of anything on that menu, but these are just suggestions to ladies. But in the event that you thought there was not very much food in this time, look at all of the suggestions for a first course and all of the suggestions for a second course. There are also quite a lot of recipes in here for different types of green salads and wonderful dressings, besides fish, different seafoods that are available to us, all sorts of vegetables, and we do eat a lot of different types of food. None of this is really to my liking, so it sort of is a bit interesting, but I thought I would share that with you. And of course, I don't do any cooking. I have a servant who does the cooking. But for most families, just to let you know, the woman does do the cooking in the family and has food available throughout the day on the sideboard for people going in and out. Because if your whole family is busy doing chores all day in order to keep your homestead running, why, you don't have time to sit down to a meal together. And if you do, it might be the first meal of the day or your breakfast. And then throughout the day, people come and go and eat as needed. So there's always some sort of maybe something here on the hearth, that you can grab, a soup or a rotisserie of meat or chicken that you can grab some of, maybe some vegetables that have been cooked, or on the side salad green, or from the oven, a fresh bread. All of that available throughout the day so that people can eat when they have an opportunity to eat. The fact that we in the city eat late supper together is something unique to us. So after I finish, Mr. Q and I will have our late supper, or we might go join some friends for supper. We'll see. Maybe Mr. Q is out seeing if anyone is free for when we're done, to see if someone would like to join us for supper. But that is something unique to the city, the late supper that we have here. It's not something that's generally done. Life here is odd compared to everyone else here in America, which I believe is going to be the case in your time as well, that New York is going to remain a rather odd and unusual place by other areas' standards. Let me get this out of the way. I got some more comments here. Hello from Richard and Janice in Tennessee. It's always good to see you too, and I'm very glad you could be with me tonight on Friday. Mr. Linden says he thinks, yes, oh, what were they called again? Lambstones. Absolutely. In your time, he says you call them Rocky Mountain oysters. Yes. Um, and Solipsistic is here as well. Hello to you too. Mr. Q, by the way, he won't eat the little rabbits, but he does eat all sorts of grotesque things, which I assume he developed from from traveling so much, from so much being on trails and being out on his own for long periods of time, has accustomed himself to eating some very awful things. One of the things that Mr. Q um, takes with him, and do you remember a few weeks ago we were at my sister's home and I mentioned that Mr. Q and Mr. Van R went on a trip first to the Iroquois Nation, and then they moved on a little bit further to meet with a Mr. Butler. Well, on that trip, they took something with them that we call pocket soup. I think you might have some things that are similar to it. Now, a pocket soup is a broth boiled from bones, boiled for a long time until it becomes very thick, almost like a gelatin. The bone is then taken out, and the thick broth is laid out on a cloth with another cloth on top of it, and it is turned a couple of times a day, and it dries out into a very hard type of gelatin substance, almost leathery. It's broken into pieces and then carried by gentlemen in a pouch. And then when they're traveling, all they need to do is add boiling water to it, and they reconstitute that broth made from mostly beef bones. So they reconstitute that beef bone broth, and then they add to it whatever else they might have. So if they have some dried meat, they might add that. If they've on the way found some fresh vegetables, they chop those up and add that. And that constitutes the basis for a meal that a gentleman has when he's traveling. So pocket soup, very popular in our time, and we buy some from someone here in the city, but my sister's servant makes it. So when Mr. Q and Mr. Van R went on their trip, they got some from the pantry there and took it with them. Let's see. Mr. Facemeyer says, my grandmother served rabbit on Easter one year. Oh, how did that go, Mr. Facemeyer? My grandfather, who was from Naples and spoke a little English when he came here, lived, of course, with my parents, my mother's father. My sister had some pet rabbits when we were growing up. And one day she came home. We came home from our lessons with Mr. Crane. You know, we'd been out doing our school lessons. We came home, and my sister went to count her rabbits, and one was missing. And she went out, went into the house, and on the table was the skin and fur of the rabbit, and in a pot in the hearth was a stew. And my sister said to our grandfather, "Oh, Grampy, did you cook one of my rabbits?" And he sat and he laughed so hard. He said, "Oh, sweetheart, it's okay. That's what they're for." And she burst into tears, ran out of the house, and she was just so sad that her wonderful Grampy cooked one of her rabbits. My grandmother, after that, would never eat rabbit again. And neither would my mother. So that was the end of rabbits. Whenever my grandfather cooked a rabbit, it was he and my father who ate the rabbit stew, and none of the rest of us. So a fun story from, my childhood and rabbits. So Mr. Q doesn't eat rabbits, or cute little bunnies as he calls them, but he does eat some other things. My grandfather and my father also adored tripe, dried, salted dried tripe, and then they would reboil it. Oh, it's just horrible stuff. Men eat horrible stuff. I don't know how you do it. At least Mr. Q does, and my father did. And what do we have here? Oh, a whole section on various types of puddings. Here's an orange pudding, all sorts of puddings made from fruits, also vegetable puddings, meat puddings, all sorts of things, custards, how to make various types of jellies and jams. Lots of wonderful recipes in here using fruit and using herbs and spices, especially fruits and mints. Very nice recipes. And what else did I bring to show you? Oh, some of the remedies for cough that I mentioned, boiling different herbs together, boiling it down until it's very thick, then adding some sugar to sweeten it and drinking it for coughs. So there are a whole bunch of these for coughs. Other recipes for, if your eyes are red and scratchy, different presses you could put on your eyes. I could use a little something because I noticed the last couple days I'm looking very puffy in the face and my eyes. And I assume that is because of the lack of sleep we are all getting here, that we're all very anxious and not sleeping well. And as a result, I'm looking rather puffy tonight. I apologize for that. Mr. Q noticed it this afternoon and very, very diplomatically tried to tell me that I looked a little puffy around the face. And I certainly do. So hopefully by next week that will be gone. There are some herbs that I can take to help with that, to help flush the fluid out of my body. We have many remedies for gout. What else? For burns, for everything you can imagine. There is a remedy in this book. So this is a book that ladies would keep in their home as a guide for all sorts of recipes and cures and things like that. And then the young men would keep that guide in their home for all sorts of information on how to measure for things, how to build things, how to write, letters and that sort of thing, how to conduct business deals, how to make estimates. Actually, the Gentleman's book, we have a copy of that, and quite a few sections of that have suited me very well in what I do. So my father had me read some sections of that book for myself. But in general, there's the Gentleman's book and the Lady's book. Now, in your time, I think some of you might be sort of offended by these rigid rules, but remember, everyone has to do their job so that a family will survive and do well. There is a strict division of labor and what parts of the home the ladies manage and what parts of the family the men manage. And all of these chores have to be done in order for people to do well. For instance, now it's summer, and in summer, oh, excuse me, my face is itchy. In summer, there's quite a lot of activity around the garden because in the fall, food has to be put away for the winter. I know someone I saw recently remarked that they were in and visiting an old Revolutionary War museum or home, and they talked about how all of the meats and fish were salted for the winter. And she found that a little bit disgusting, but that is the only method of preservation we use, or a cold storage like we have here in the cellar. So we'll have things salted and put here in the cold storage. Of course, we also pickle things. Oh, there are a lot of instructions in here for pickling all kinds of fruits and vegetables as well to keep them in the cellar throughout the winter. So there are always many chores that people have to do in order to live. And if people started mixing up roles and doing things that the other person does because they don't like what their roles are, and then some things didn't get done, we would have chaos. So we try very much to impress these rules upon our younger people so that we can have successful lives. I am an exception. The lady merchants of my time are all exceptions to the rule. And there aren't that many of us. And I'm going to be absolutely frank with you and tell you that I don't know if there are lady merchants outside of New York City. I don't know if there are any in Boston or Philadelphia at all. Here in New York, it comes from a Dutch tradition of having Dutch ladies who were merchants, and we now have other ladies who are as well. But I don't know if that even exists outside of New York. That might be one of our strange peculiarities. Oh, our neighbor is going by with their puppy. He's so cute. His name is Cooper. He's an adorable puppy. Mr. Q loves to go out and play with him. I know I present Mr. Q as being a big, tough, self-sufficient man, which he is, but he loves this little puppy. And whenever he sees him, he runs out and he calls him Koopy and he hugs him and kisses him. And it is so adorable to watch, to see that side of Mr. Q presented publicly, something he usually hides only inside. Usually when you see Mr. Q in public, he is very stoic and gentlemanly and proper, and with his aura of a woodsman who you would not want to have conflict with until he sees this lovely puppy and he completely melts. And when he sees bunnies. Let's see. Miss Silver says, in our time, wouldn't that be a form of bouillon? It's similar to bouillon, but it isn't dry. I did notice on the internet, you can look up pocket soup, and on some of the, I think you call them survivalist websites, they show how to do it with bone broth. And they have a picture of how to make it and how it looks when it's done. And it looks like a very hard, leathery gelatin type substance broken into pieces. But it would be sort of a forerunner to bouillon. And Solipsistic says, I know some indigenous people ate wild rice, but did anyone in your time ever consume it? Yes. We buy all sorts of grains from the native tribes here in New York, different types of corn and wheat and rice from them as well. I don't know how prevalent that is in other parts of the country, but we do buy those items, trade those items for them. So we have quite an interesting cuisine here. For instance, in this book, you'll see some recipes from India, which have come to us through England and their relationship with India. So we have things like mulligatawny soup. We have different curries and chutneys in this book. So we have some of those brought to us from India. We also have some Native American recipes in here as well, made with all local ingredients, herbs, roots, vegetables, things like that, and spices. And we also, of course, have some remedies here that we have learned from our Native American neighbors. Someone keeps asking me what Halloween was like. I don't know if this is a joke question, but we are speaking tonight about June 6th, 1775, at which time we did not celebrate Halloween, was not an 18th century holiday in New York. So you might have to ask someone who is in a later time period about Halloween, as that is not something we celebrate in my time. We do have masquerade balls, but for a completely different reason. Did I have a good birthday? Did Mr. Q spoil you? Well, I did have a good birthday, and Mr. Q was very kind to me, as he always is. You know, there isn't anything that Mr. Q would deny me. You know, as I said before, I'm not extravagant, but any such sort of thing I do wish Mr. Q will get for me. For example, oh, it's probably about 2 years ago now, I was making a new, you would call it, it's like a cape, but it's not a cape. It's short in the back because it only goes down to the top of where the butt cushion emerges from the back of the dress, right? So it just comes down around the front. And I was having it made out of, some of you may have even seen it. It's green velvet on the outside and it is pink satin on the inside. And I very much wanted some white fur to line the whole outside of it, which I thought would look lovely with the emerald green velvet. And of course, Mr. Q acquired that for me so that I could have the fur put around it. And it is so beautiful when the hood is up and there's the pink lining and the green outside and the white fur. It's so lovely. There isn't anything that Mr. Q wouldn't do for me or get for me. And likewise, there isn't anything that I would deny Mr. Q wanting to do or have. You know, we are quite happy with each other and like to do things that makes the other person happy. We do have our differences. I won't say we don't, but both of us have learned over time when it is best not to speak, when it's much better to go to, in my case, maybe if I'm very annoyed at Mr. Q, I might just go over to Mrs. R's print shop and go in the back room and just tell Mrs. R how mad I am at Mr. Q. And then Mrs. R will tell me how mad she is at Mr. R. And we'll spend a little bit of time complaining about our husbands. And then it's all done and we go home and there are no conflicts. I think Mr. Q probably does the same thing. He goes over to the City Arms Tavern and probably does the same thing. And that is really a good approach to take when you're angry, to learn to shut this and go talk to one of your friends instead, get it over with, and then go back and not have conflict. It works much better because a lot of times the conflicts are dumb, aren't they? And you might say something that you don't really want to be remembered. So I find it much more gratifying to go see my friend Mrs. R, and then we can both talk about how mad we are at our husbands over everything and how mad we are we married them and all of those things and get it all over with. And then everything is fine after that. Let's see. I'm surprised Indonesian food is not common in New York at all, considering the Dutch history in the East Indies. It is. We do have, I just didn't mention it. We do have Indonesian and we also have Caribbean dishes here as well, which are some of Mr. Q's favorite dishes. So we do have vegetables and dishes from the Caribbean that we cook. And my mother-in-law, Miss Doña Q, of course, I am old enough to now to be Doña Q, which is quite stunning to me. That will always be my mother-in-law. Made the most wonderful Caribbean style stew with pork and green peppers, pumpkin, all sorts of Caribbean spices, and fresh tomatoes. And it was wonderful. I make it now too. She taught me how to make it. I make it for Mr. Q, but she made many Caribbean recipes and they were wonderful. So we also do have Caribbean food here because there's so much travel back and forth between New York and the Caribbean islands and trade. So obviously those items would go back and forth. Was the cooking done mostly on open flame fires? Yes, just like what you see behind me. There's a chair behind me, but just like what you see behind me. So this would be typical for during the day that you might see some pots hanging on the fire, some down in the coals of the fire. And on the side here, you can see the oven has a teapot in it. And that also is a bread oven in back. So you would bake bread and close it and break bread in there. You might call that a brick oven in your time, which is literally a brick oven to the side of the hearth in my time. So yes, it would be normal for these things to be hanging out on the flame all day. You can see, even though I'm downstairs here where it's cooler, I'm still sweating a little bit tonight as it is quite warm. So let's see, do you guys have any questions or anything you'd like me to talk about? Things are getting really interesting in 1775, aren't they? We're developing a military and a commander, and we've had a few battles that have been taking place. We're reinforcing some of the forts in upstate New York, and we have sent a letter to the Canadians asking them to join us in the conflict against Britain, and I wonder what they'll say. We have also received a letter, by the way, in Philadelphia from the Prime Minister Lord North offering a reconciliation, which I think is likely going to be rejected due to the terms of that reconciliation. But we'll see how things go on week to week. Things are getting just as things were getting quieter here in New York, we had the incident with Mr. Marinus Willett today. So, it gets quiet and then things flare up and it gets quiet again. But, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, Mr. Q and I are doing our best to just keep doing what we do every day and to live our lives for as long as things change here, and who knows what will happen. So we just try to enjoy every day as it comes. And I hope that you do that as well. So hopefully I'll see you again next Thursday. We'll be back to Thursday night next week. And I forgot to tell you my 21st century person, Mrs. Q, tomorrow from 4 to 7 on Republic Broadcasting Network. That's republicbroadcastingnetwork.org. I will be on the Rebel Madman show with Mr. Michael Gaddy, and I'm going to be talking about something I began talking about last week, something called accelerationism. And that is when people provoke events to make things move more quickly. And last week on my Sunday show, I talked about the way that was done leading up to the Revolutionary War, how people accelerated things by manipulating events, accelerated the anger with England to make things come to a head. And we see that throughout history, and we are seeing it in 2025. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about that in relation to 2025. And then Sunday, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, again on republicbroadcasting.org. I'll be back to my regular history with Mrs. Q, where we study the way Marinus Willett fought the power so that we can better fight the power in the 21st century. And I'll be talking about Marinus Willett in more detail on Sunday. So thank you all so much for joining me. I'll see you again next Thursday. Have a wonderful week. And always, keep loving the 18th century like Mrs. Q does. Mr. Telek says, I enjoy your radio show when I remember to listen. Well, all of those are available on republicbroadcasting.org in the archives. They're all archived. And Mr. White says that was interesting. Thank you, Mr. White. Um, all of those are in the archives. And, I'm working on a Substack page where I'll have all of those archives, these shows and my radio shows all together, and some articles I'm working on where you can see all that in one place. And I'll announce when that is ready and you can go there. Part of what I'll have there will be my show notes from my Sunday night shows, because I talk about some very interesting historical things that sometimes you don't know about. Like I do here as Mrs. Q, but Mrs. Q here sticks with New York. And on Sundays, I talk about more broad events that are happening. So thank you all very much. I'm going to go find Mr. Q, and I think we will go have late supper somewhere. So good night, everyone.